All right. Hello again, everybody. My name is Nija Ransom. I am one of the community garden engagement coordinators here at NYRP. And I'm also joined by my colleague Anjana, who is our seasonal on our community engagement team. And we are super excited to welcome you to the Citizens Grant Clinic, led by Carlos of Citizens NYC. We're super excited to be offering this opportunity to kind of, learn about the grants and understand what's needed to have a successful grant application, and provide that as a resource to gardeners across the city. So, with that being said, I'm going to keep it nice and short, and I'm going to pass it over to Carlos to get started because he has a packed presentation for you all.
Amazing. Thank you so much for passing the baton there. I appreciate you. And I also appreciate everybody in the room right now. I know folks are very busy out there. So the fact that you took time out of your evening to make it is awesome. And I really hope that this presentation, we make it your wow by the end of it. Hopefully, by the end of it, you feel encouraged enough to apply for this awesome opportunity. So, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can take a look at my presentation. And yeah, so we're going to be talking about Citizens NYC's 2026 Community Leaders Grant. My name is Carlos Santiago. I am the programs manager here at Citizens NYC. And I wear many hats here, but one of the things that I lead here is I'm one of the main outreach people. So I'm out there spreading the word about our grants, and getting people connected to this amazing resource that is helping plenty of people across the five boroughs. So basically, throughout the course of this particular presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about Citizens NYC, who we are, what we do. Then I'll jump into the eligibility requirements. I think pretty much everyone here is going to be eligible, which is great. But I will make sure to be thorough once we get to that section because, I want you folks to be a partner in this, in spreading the word too, because you might know other people out there who are probably doing amazing work. That's not just work that's done in the garden. Maybe they're doing stuff like Betsy mentioned as a block association, right? So we'll would love to go through that, and hopefully folks might think of, hey, I might know somebody who could apply for this. So after I get through that, I'm going to walk through the grant timeline, and that's going to be an awesome place to take notes, folks, because the dates that we have to juggle are integral to this entire grant application process. So please keep that in mind, once we get to that section. And I will be very clear as to what we're expecting there once we get to that point. After that, I will open the floor for questions, any clarifying questions that you might have. No question is too big or too small. So please, if you feel like, oh, is this getting in the weeds or is this a stupid question? No, it's not. So please go for it. Ask as many questions as you need. I want you folks to feel like you have a good grasp of this. After that, we're going to jump straight into the activity. So I'm going to give you some grant writing tips on how to actually approach our particular application for the Community Leaders Grant. But I will also walk you through three of the most important questions in the application. And really, to be honest with you, I'm not showing you the entire application. And you're probably wondering, this is an application clinic. Why are you showing us the whole application? I have a reason for it, and it's because folks are pretty good at answering certain questions, and I will emphasize which of those points, which parts of those applications that is that people are really good at answering. I'm going to show you three of the most important questions in the application. I have been here almost 4 years. I have read thousands of applications at this point. So you're going to be getting good information from a good source of someone who's reading these applications year in and year out. So I want you to trust me. You get these three questions and you answer them really, really well, you're going to be very, very competitive for this already very competitive application process. So I'm going to be walking you through a question that walks through the what your project is. We're going to walk through a question that goes through the why is your project needed in your community, and then we're going to walk through a question that addresses how you're going to carry out the project. So I'm emphasizing those three things because there are three things that I want you folks to do during this presentation. And it all involves you creating three sentences. That's literally all I want you to produce over the course of this session is I want you guys to write out three sentences. It could be more, it can even be less, but really what I want to do is give you a really good head start to start like working on your application. And after we get through that, I will show you how you can get some support along the way if you want feedback on any of the work that you're planning to submit applications for. So, with that said, I'll just start with Citizens NYC. If you're not familiar with us, we've been around since 1975, and we are a micro grant nonprofit organization that specializes in funding small grassroots projects across the five boroughs of New York City. We're not issue based, so yes, we do fund plenty of gardens and environmental projects across the city, but we also fund all kinds of other projects. Really, it's up to the applicant to describe to us what the issues or obstacles are in their neighborhood and what they're doing as a community project or community initiative that is addressing those issues head on. This can be someone who is feeding the hungry through a food pantry or hot meals, or this can be a nonprofit that is very concerned that seniors are getting scammed and they're creating free programming for them so they can train them on how to use a computer and a phone effectively so that they don't get scammed. Really, we run the gamut of the types of projects that we fund. And really, we're supporting the smallest of the small, the grassroots of the grassroots. A great deal of the people that apply for our grants have never written grants before, are not grant writers, and those are the people that we're trying to reach because traditional philanthropy doesn't necessarily reach those folks. So we want to make grant making more accessible for folks who are actually out there listening to their community and also responding accordingly, right? So you're probably wondering, community leaders grant, I want to apply, but what are the chances of me getting it? I will admit, we get 1,000 applications per year. We award over 200 every single year. So, we're trying to fund as many good projects as we possibly can, and we get many, many, many quality applications. And I implore people that while it is a competitive application, you should be applying every single year because this is an opportunity that is open every single year. So please, please, please keep applying. Yes, I have seen people that have gotten it on their first try. But to be honest with you, like I mentioned earlier, been here almost 4 years. I've seen most people get it on their second, their third, or even their fourth try. It's really a matter of continuing to apply and also continuing to submit quality applications. And if you need support, you can always ask. And I will show you how to do that a little later if you do want that kind of support. So, and I'll spell all of those things out once we get to that point in the presentation. So that's the main gist of what the community leaders grant in terms of, the bird's eye view of how many applications we get, how many award, and things of the sort. As for the eligibility requirements and how much it's for, so this grant is for up to $5,000. And in order for you to apply, you have to be located within New York City and serving New Yorkers. And in order for you to apply, you can be a group of two or more people. That's one of the amazing things about this grant, folks. Like, you don't need to be a 501c3. You don't even need to have a fiscal sponsor. It can literally be you and a friend, you and a family member with an idea to help your neighbors, and you can apply for this grant. So please go for it. If that sounds like you, also, Betsy mentioned block associations. Block associations have been a pretty big part of our history at Citizens NYC. Actually, we have a history of supporting block associations, so they can also get in the pot of applying for the community leaders grant. If you are a 501c3 nonprofit, you have to make sure that your annual budget is under $250,000. Going back to the previous point I've made multiple times, we're trying to reach the smallest of the small, and usually those nonprofits with budgets under 250K, like they might not even have staff yet. So those are folks we definitely want to support. Public schools can also apply. These are PTAs, these are school gardens, these are youth leadership councils. There are plenty of needs and projects happening across many schools across the city. They can absolutely get involved in trying to apply. If you want to get youth like familiar with the application process, you're more than welcome to, ask them to help you write up the application. Just make sure they're the secondary contact. The primary contact has to be someone who is 18 years or older. But if you want to get a youth involved in applying, please get them a part of this, because that's always good experience for not just college, but also trying to apply for scholarships and grants later down the line. So please get them involved. You can apply for multiple projects too. So what this means is if you have three project ideas, go ahead and submit three different applications. Just make sure that each application is one project. What tends to happen sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, is there are people that end up detailing everything that they do, right? And it doesn't necessarily indicate to us what they're going to do with a grant of up to $5,000, because this, at the end of the day, it's a micro grant. It's not 25, 50, or 100K, right? So just make sure that each application is one project. I get the question all the time: what are the chances of me getting more than one grant? Full transparency, it's rare, but it does happen. There's 3 to 4 to 5 folks that end up getting more than one grant every year. So I have seen it. It does happen. It's not impossible, but like I said, it's rare. Like once you pair the neighborhood business grant, which is for small businesses and has the same goal, and us trying to get community projects, like we get 2,000 applications, we get 300 plus grantee partners every year. So, those 3 to 4 to 5 is a very, very small amount of folks. But again, I have to admit it does happen. So it's not impossible. But I wanted to be transparent there because I know people are taking a lot of time, a lot of vulnerability, and effort to try to apply for these grants. So, just want to be fully transparent there. In terms of the no-nos, so the ineligibility, so fraternal and partisan organizations can't apply, chapters or affiliates of larger organizations can't apply. The other no-nos are, you know, I get also very, very often, because people are that interact with us might have interacted with other funders before. We also get the very important question around, well, what can we use the money for? So I can tell you what you shouldn't use the money for. Really, at the end of the day, we're not trying to police folks into what it is that they need, right? You folks are experts in your community. We're not going to police you on what it is that you need, because if you need it, you need it, right? We do ask a few things though. Do not use the funding to pay yourself or pay staff. If you want to say give stipends to volunteers, you can absolutely do that. You can give folks stipends of up to $250. That's perfectly fine. If you want to pay to get people some Omni cards so they could travel to the garden, like you want youth and you want them to come in and volunteer, you can absolutely do that as well. Really, it's just a matter, just make sure you're not paying yourself and you're not paying staff and you're using all of the funds for whatever it is that you're doing in your programming, in your garden, et cetera, et cetera. I also, so don't use the funds for, you know, any kind of overhead. I get the question also often about, like, what if I have a contractor that needs, like, that needs to do something for us. Like literally, there's a grantee partner of ours that shares the space with us. Um, she's doing amazing work in East Harlem and in West Harlem, I should say. And she was like, "Yeah, we're trying to create this shed, and it's a lot more work than we expected. Like, we need an expert to actually create this shed because she's putting like all of this soil and stuff at the top and planting it. Really creative project, but she needed like some experts to actually do this, right? So she was like, "Can I use the funds to pay a roofer who knows what they're doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. Like this is integral to the work that you're trying to do. Use that money for what it is that you need." So that's basically the gist in terms of what the funding should be going for. Just make sure everything is focused on what it is that you're going to do in the garden in particular, and you should be fine on that end. This is the point to take really good notes, folks, before we get into questions. So our application opened on May 4th, and the deadline is July 25th at 5 p.m. So please note that the application will close on July 27th at 5 p.m. And if you apply by then, you should have your grant decision sent to you via email in September, so mid to late September. So expect it then. And if you're one of the lucky folks that's awarded, congratulations. You should be getting the funds sent to you by mid to late October. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. You see that point at the very bottom of the slide that says projects must run between October 2026 and September 2027. That is a crucial, crucial, crucial detail in the entire application because there is a question in the application that asks you for your project timeline. And in that project timeline, we want to know that your project and that the funds that you're getting via the grant are being spent between October 2026 and September 2027. What ends up happening a lot of times, and this happens so many times that I've lost count, where I read an application, I get super excited. I'm like, wow, I think this one's going to make it real far in the process. And then I scroll down and look at their project timeline and it doesn't align. And that breaks my heart because, it doesn't matter how amazing your project ends up looking on paper. If it's not aligned within the timeline, we cannot fund it. So if things are happening in July or August or September or even the beginning of October, we're just not going to be able to fund it in time, right? So please make sure that everything is happening between October 2026 and September 2027. You're probably wondering, Carlos, are you going to ask us for receipts? No, we're not going to ask you for receipts. However, we are going to ask you to spend all of the funds within those 11 months. So once you get the money, you have 11 months to complete your project. And at the very end of the grant year, we're going to send you a final report form. And in that final report, we want to know what your successes were, what your challenges were, any adjustments that you had to make, and what your overall impact looked like. There is nothing that you need to produce for us, like an impact report or anything like that. We don't need that. We do, however, need you to fill out that final report. That is very important. If you ever want to be a repeat winner, so because we have people in our cohort who have gotten grants over the years multiple times. If you want to get another grant in the future, you better make sure that you submit that final report. And I promise you, it is not scary. It takes 45 minutes to complete, and it's something that we even walk you through. We will schedule info sessions for folks that would prefer it in the afternoon or the morning, and also in the evening. We will inform you on exactly what it is that we want to see when the time comes. So don't feel like we're just gonna leave you high and dry to be like, hey, what do they want? we will absolutely be explicitly clear as to what we want from you in the form, and it literally takes 45 minutes to complete. It's pretty simple. Um, let's move on to grant writing tips. So, what I'm going to share are basically the essentials that you need when applying for a community leaders grant. If you follow these points, you're doing pretty good. Jennifer, great question. Everything is going to happen through citizensnyc.org. I'll put that in the chat. Everything is done online. So you will find once you end up selecting a community leaders grant, you will be prompted to create an account through our portal, and then you will see the option to apply for the community leaders grant. So please, everybody should become an expert at the website. I think we have a pretty awesome website. We even have our past grantee partners from the last couple years there. So please feel free to poke around because you can even see some of their project descriptions. So please take a look at what we have there. There is a map where you can see, scroll in and see anybody in your neighborhood that might have gotten a grant before. So please make sure to scour through the website because I think it's pretty nifty. But great question, Jennifer. But again, let's get into grant writing tips. Before I even get into that, before I even get into the very important points here, um, I have to emphasize that we do not care about spelling or grammatical errors, right? People get, grant writing is a very specialized skill that people get certificates in, people go to college and take classes for. Like, don't feel like you need to have this very specialized skill to get this grant because a great deal, over 30% of the people that apply for this grant aren't necessarily grant writers and have never written grants before. And those are people that we're trying to reach. And I can tell you from experience, with absolute certainty, there have been plenty of applications that I have read and reviewed that ended up getting funded, and they had multiple spelling mistakes and grammatical mistakes. And why were they funded at the end of the day? Because they clearly demonstrated to us what it is that they were going to do and why it was important in their community. So if you do those things, you're going to be pretty successful without even having to have any of that grant writing background. So don't worry about that. Another thing, we're in the age of AI. So I have to make this disclaimer. If you know how to use it adequately, and the keyword is adequately, I'm not talking to you. So you can sit back, relax for a couple minutes. If you do not know how to use it, please do not use it. Please, please, please do not use it. Why? Because AI, at the end of the day, doesn't know what you're doing. It does not know what you're doing. It does not know the depths of the issues and the obstacles in your community. So it doesn't matter how much you try to prompt the AI, it's not going to give you anything unless you give it something. And at the end of the day, for our application, you have to give us something. You have to tell us what it is that you're doing. So you might as well just approach the application as is and trust that you will be okay without having to use AI. Because I cannot begin to tell you how many applications we've gotten over the last couple years that are almost exactly the same. And if they're different, like you see all of the same exact structure, because believe it or not, a lot of people are applying in the last 2 days of the cycle. So everybody's using the same platform. So all of the responses are going to look the same. Like it's just, that's just the reality of the situation. So just be very wary of that. I would hate for you to like genuinely be honest about it and then use it and it not work for you. So please don't do that. Because it's gonna hurt you more than you think. So just follow the tips that I'm going to share in a moment. Which are these?
Sorry,
So,
sorry, Carlos. There's one more
yes,
question in the chat.
yes.
Jennifer asks, "Do we have to have an official position with the project, or is being involved with the project and applying on behalf of the project enough authority to apply?"
Jennifer, you're good. Yes, you can be, as long as you're involved in some way. If they're legitimately if they're legitimately like, hey, Jennifer is in charge of managing this, Jennifer is in charge of applying for this, that means that they trust you, right? Like they are trusting you with something pretty important, right? So you don't have to have an official position at all whatsoever. You can just be someone who is applying on behalf of the project. That is more than enough authority. Just make sure that people know what's going on, right? Like inform them of where you are, like where you are in the process and how things are going. As long as you keep folks informed, you should be perfectly fine. Make sure, remember when I said groups of two or more people can apply? I did mention that it can just be you and a friend, you and a family member, right? But also there's a practical point to this too, where you need to have two contacts. So you need to have a primary and a secondary contact. So just make sure that the secondary contact of the person of the project that you're applying for is aware of everything that's going on. So just make sure you have at least one person from the project that's being engaged in involved in the application process too, and you should be perfectly fine. That is a great question. Thank you, Jennifer, for raising it. All right, awesome. So let's go through this point by point. So write about your project like you were talking to a friend. And I know that sounds corny and cliche, but there's a reason why I say that, because that's entirely different from if I wrote write about your project like you were talking to a funder, right? If I would have said talking to a funder, I would have been talking about, hey, it needs to be structured this way. You should be using these keywords. You should be using this structure. No, don't worry about that. Usually, when we're talking to a friend or a family member, we get straight to the point in telling them what we're doing and why we care about it and why we're passionate about it, right? Because even our family would be like, yo, get to the point, get to the point. Like, that's what you want to do in this application too, is just get to the point. That next bullet point that says, tell us about your group or business's history and mission and goals. People are amazing at answering that question. And that makes sense because what you're doing, like it's your baby in a sense, right? You care about it, you're nurturing it, you're out there actually doing the work. So it makes sense why folks are really successful at writing out that question and the response for it, right? It makes perfect sense to me. People are so good at it, in fact, that I'm not even showing you the question in this application clinic of how to even approach it, because folks are really good. Like the vast majority of people are very good at approaching that question, but it introduces a little bit of a trap, because what ends up happening is people get super excited talking about their mission that they don't necessarily tell us what they're doing for a grant of up to $5,000. And that's the crucial part. And thankfully, most of y'all are gardens, right? So you actually have, you're kind of lucky in the sense that you are doing things that are super practical and there are steps to it and you know what those materials are, right? So like that's not really the case for a lot of the people that apply for the community leaders grant, because like I mentioned before, we're funding all kinds of projects and every project is going to be different in terms of scope, in terms of impact. So some people might struggle in telling us what it is that they're doing because the question is so open-ended, but you guys are lucky in the sense that you can lean on the fact that you have a structure in which you're going to be doing certain things, right? So that's good. That next point that says, tell us what your project is, that is among the most important aspects of the application. Please get to the point in telling us what it is that you're going to do. Also, tell us who you work with in the community, any partners, any volunteers, and who you want to serve. those are all very key important things to see in an application, because we want to know that you're out there interacting with people that want to see this vision come to fruition. So tell us about those people, because they're obviously involved in this, right? So please let us know. Tell us why your project is important for your community. This is also very crucial, folks. I don't live in your community, right? I don't live in your neighborhood. You're going to have to tell us, like, yeah, at the end of the day, you're going to have to tell us, like, everything framed around your community and your neighborhood. Like, I'm just trying to think of an example of like a garden in the Bronx that we funded a few times. Part of their story is that they were a vacant lot, right? They illegal dumping happening over the course of many, many, many years. And once someone decided to get their hands dirty and try to transform this space into a community garden, it emphasizes the very real need of the fact that they live in a food desert, um, and also the fact that they felt like there weren't enough activities and spaces for young people to interact in a safe space, right? So tell us about your community and why it is that your project is an intervention to whatever it is happening in your community. And that's going to look different from every garden, because every garden is going to be different. Every community is responding to something different. So give me a clue, because I don't live in your community. You're an expert in your community, so let that show. And I hope the examples I show in a moment give you some good grounding as to what we want to see. Also, give us a timeline of how your project will be carried out. Like was mentioned, October 2026 to September 2027. We want folks to break things down, month by month or week by week. You will see an example of that in a moment. And show us your itemized budget. Everything is in the application. You don't have to send us an Excel spreadsheet. Everything is right there for your use. All right, folks. Now I'm going to get into the examples that go into the what, the why, and the how. So this is what's going to happen next, and I need y'all to interact in the chat because that's the only way this is going to work. And I will be giving you real-time feedback. So what's going to happen is I'm going to show you the what, the what question of the application, and I'll show you an entire project, an entire response to that particular question. After I read that out loud, I will give you the one sentence version of that response. And what I want you to do is think of your project and create one sentence that kind of caps it off, that will be a kickoff to the entire application that you're going to engage in, right? So that's basically what we're going to do for three questions. So three sentences. If you want to write more than one sentence, absolutely. That's what we're here for. So if you want to write a little more, that's okay. So the what's. So the question in the application that addresses the what is, in at least 150 words, provide a detailed project description. This garden room,
Wait,
121st
wait,
Street.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
What section of the application is that on? I just want to compare it to what I wrote last.
it is. You just look for something that says in at least 150 words, provide a detailed project description. That is one of the questions in the application. So this garden road, 121st Street Community Gardens project will make several physical and environmental improvements to the garden, including expanding composting capacity, rebuilding raised garden beds, removing a diseased tree, and completing the long-planned goldfish pond. The first part of the project will focus on rebuilding and expanding the garden's compost bin so that they can hold more food scraps and be easier for volunteers and neighbors to use. This will include improving the layout of the bins, strengthening the structure, and making the composting area more organized. And the project will also repair and expand raised garden beds throughout the site. These improvements will create stronger growing spaces for vegetables, flowers, herbs, and other plantings while making the garden easier to maintain throughout the season. As part of the project, a diseased cottonwood tree will be removed to protect the health of the garden and surrounding plants. Finally, the garden will complete its goldfish pond, adding a beautiful and educational feature to the space. Together, these improvements will make the garden more productive, welcoming, and sustainable for gardeners, volunteers, and neighbors. As you see, folks, they got straight to the point. They told me that they told us about these improvements that they need to make, and I think it's pretty clear. And you can even summarize it in a sentence. And I want you folks to summarize your question, your project, I should say, in terms of that particular question. What is your project description? What is your project? For this case, it's 121st Street Community Garden will expand its composting capacity, rebuild and add raised garden beds, remove a diseased cottonwood tree, and complete a goldfish pond to make the garden more useful, sustainable, and welcoming for the surrounding community. So please write in the chat one sentence that addresses the what. If you want to write more than one sentence, that's perfectly okay. But I would love to see what you guys end up coming with. So take a couple minutes, write it out, put it in the chat. I will read it out loud, and I'll give you my feedback. There we go. Jennifer writes, Inwood Butterfly Sanctuary will design and build a greenhouse area adjacent to its garden to propagate native pollinator-friendly plants to support the ongoing health and growth of the monarch habitat and migration in NYC. Love it, Jennifer. You managed to tell me exactly what it is that you're doing in the simplest manner possible. I think you did a really good job there. Really just a matter now of just continuing to tell us more about that in the application, but you already have a very solid start there. Eloise writes, Community Serenity Garden will implement gardening programs to aid in the development of gardeners who are coping with disabilities. Amazing. So Eloise, this is an awesome start too. Really, when it comes to the project description section of the application, please tell us about what those programs will look like on the ground. So you already told me what you're doing. I think it's great. Now it's just a matter of expanding it a little bit. Anhana writes, Truce Garden will build a pollinator garden using sand, rocks, and native plants to attract pollinator species and help grow more food and flowers for the local community to enjoy. That's also very, very clear. Betsy writes, the 95th Street Block Association will enlarge the tree beds and protect the enlarged bed with iron tree guards around 4 mature honey locust trees to improve the health of the trees, thereby providing shade and beauty on a major street intersection. That's also very, very, very clear. Wendy writes, we would like new trash cans and bins to store wood chips for the nitrogenous aspect of composting, as well as new trash cans and labeling mediums so that trash goes where appropriate and recycling in the correct bin. Amazing. I think everybody here, I think everyone here who's participated has passed the assignment. I think you guys did great. Keep putting in the chat. So I'm going to go into the why, and already, like right now, since it's going to take a few minutes, already start saying why this is needed in your community and put it in a sentence. So let's get into the why of this, right? So this is the example. In at least 150 words, why is the project needed in your community? What does a successful project look like? This project is needed because 121st Street Community Garden serves as an important green space and environmental resource in a neighborhood with limited access to composting and community gardening infrastructure. The garden is one of only it's one of the only, I should say, compost drop-off locations within a mile radius, and neighbors regularly rely on it to recycle food scraps. However, the current compost bins are no longer able to keep up with community demand, which has forced the garden to turn away food scrap donations during busy periods. The garden also needs repairs and environmental improvements in order to remain safe, productive, and welcoming. Several raised beds are in poor condition, limiting the garden's ability to grow vegetables, flowers, and other plantings. The diseased cottonwood tree also presents a concern because it weakens the health of the garden and contributes to the spread of the spotted lantern fly, an invasive species that threatens local plant life. A successful project would give residents a stronger, healthier, and more useful community garden. Neighbors would have more reliable access to composting gardeners who would have improved growing space, and the completed goldfish pond would create a beautiful feature that supports learning, care, and neighborhood pride. This is fantastic, folks. Why? That point that says this garden is the only compost drop-off location within a mile radius, I wouldn't have known that unless, someone told me. So this is speaking to the community directly and why this is such a community need, why this garden is so crucial with its efforts. Yes, it does talk about the raised beds. It does talk about the diseased cottonwood tree. Those are also very real, and it tells me what's happening in the garden. So please do that. But that point about the drop-off location being the only one within a mile radius is very telling, and speaks to the big why of why you're so necessary in your community and why this should be funded and supported. So let's get that why sentence. Here, this project is needed because the neighborhood has limited access to composting and green space, and success would mean residents can more easily recycle food waste, grow more produce and flowers, and gather in a healthier, more sustainable community garden. So please write up those sentences. Would love to hear the whys. You guys nailed the what, so let's see how you folks approach the why of it all. Wendy writes, the garden is open to the public and we have noticed mixed materials going into the bins. While we appreciate individuals trying to dispose of unneeded materials, they need to be directed for appropriate collection or upcycling. Absolutely. That's a why. And it's an issue, right? So I think that's pretty clear. Yeah, there would just be a need of just expanding on that a little more, Wendy. But you have a really good start there. I think that makes perfect sense. And plus, you can even talk to a lot of people aren't aware. Like it's insane that we have all these composting efforts that are awesome in terms of the city adopting them, but they haven't done a good job of informing the public about it, right? So please talk about that. Betsy writes, this project is needed because 95th Street has lost 4 large trees this past year, and the block has become overwhelmingly sunny and hot. So we are trying to protect the valuable assets that remain. Makes perfect sense. You told me something that's like legitimately happening within the community, something that I wouldn't have known otherwise. So Betsy, I think that's great. And Hunter writes, this project is needed because the harvest last year suffered from a large number of pests, and the pollinator garden would help grow food that is needed in the community that has very few grocery stores and fresh produce. That's very clear. Kyle writes, make garden more inviting and engage all ages to keep neighborhood clean. Yes, absolutely. Please expand on that once you apply. Jennifer writes, NYC is a vital location in the Canada to Mexico migration path of the endangered monarch butterfly, and the greatest threat to these essential pollinators is the loss of habitat. I wouldn't have known that either. So see what I mean by like just explaining things that may seem obvious being very impactful in an application. Like you guys are experts in what you're doing, but I'm not out there doing that kind of work. And even to Betsy's point, like I'm not on 95th Street, right? So please, like, put us in your shoes, and that's going to make a really big difference. Keep putting them in the chat, folks. So I'm going to move on to, so this one's a little different. The how. The how is just the project timeline, right? So I'm just going to show you a timeline. I'm not going to go point by point, but this is what we want it to look like more or less. We just want you to break things up month by month, week by week, however it is that you decide to structure it. Like, hey, this month I'm going to purchase supplies. This month I'm gonna gather my volunteers in X place. Or this week we're going to be doing things regarding the raised beds, like whatever it might be. Just break things down accordingly. You see how it says month 1 through 6? Don't do that. Just so give me a specific month, and how you're breaking it down, and make sure, of course, some projects are starting before the October 2026, part of the timeline. It's okay, obviously. If you have things going on before, you can put that in the timeline. You just have to make sure that your project and the money is being spent between October 2026 and September 2027, and you should be perfectly okay. So if I were to
So all the
synthesize this
planning,
into, yes,
so
what was
all the
that?
plan, all the planning could start today,
Yeah, absolutely.
but the
Absolutely.
actual contracting, if you're or purchasing, has to happen in those dates.
Correct. Exactly. Precisely.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Great question. So you're probably wondering, how can I synthesize this into a sentence? And you can. So what I implore you to do is write one more sentence, and this sentence actually is going to be tacked on to your what sentence, right? To the sentence where you talked about your project description. You can add that in. So you already have two sentences there. So let's look at this sentence real quick. Your how sentence. The garden team will carry out the project step by step by organizing volunteers, purchasing supplies, scheduling work days, completing major repairs and installations, and checking in with neighbors to make sure improvements are useful and sustainable. So please go ahead and write up that sentence. I do have another slide that I definitely want to get through before we break out. Eloise, I will read your response now. Community Serenity Garden was established primarily to service this specific group. Therefore, it is important that garden leaders and participants be educated to work with gardeners who are physically, emotionally, psychologically part of the garden, especially children who are ADHD or on all the autism spectrum. Make the safe space making the safe space sorry, making the space safe and comfortable. Makes perfect sense. I think that's a good demonstration of the why there. So I want to share, and I'm gonna write this multiple times as folks are putting the your how sentences on there. But I will be remiss to share my email. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Also, one of the things that I am offering folks is if you want feedback on your application before you hit submit, please, please, please send me a Word document or a Google document of your draft. So complete as much of your application as you possibly can, and please send me a draft. And I'd be more than happy to take a look at it and give you feedback. If you are a prior applicant and you're like, hey, what did I do wrong? What can I improve on? I still implore you to give me a brand new draft. So complete as much of it before you hit submit, not after, because if you hit submit, it's going to be hard to get your application back. But please send me a draft via a Word document or a Google document. You should be saving your progress in a Word document or Google document anyway, because cyberspace is weird. Things get lost. Let's avoid that happening at all costs. So if you want feedback, I'm more than happy to take a look at it. And to my prior point, you were a prior applicant, believe it or not, you probably had a very quality application, as we get plenty of quality applications. But the name of the game when it comes to grant making is to continue to apply and to constantly rewrite. So I'm happy to take a look at a new draft. Jennifer writes, can we toggle through the online application to review all questions before having to fill in questions on successive pages? Everything is in the portal. So once you're in there, you can do it one by one. You can, however it is that you decide to do it. So it's a pretty nifty tool. And I didn't see any how questions. I mean, how sentences, which is okay. If you want to keep putting them in the chat, feel free. But if you want to give me some feedback, please scan the QR code. Tell me how I did. Tell me how this activity was. Happy to field that feedback as we're constantly making adjustments to this particular offering. So please, your voice does absolutely matter here. I will put again my email in the chat in case people didn't grab it. Listen, I'm the lead outreach person here, so I get to people within a day or two. So if you reach out to me, I will get back to you. But let's say, for example, I take 4 or 5 days to respond. Please worry not. I will get back to you. But also feel no shame in sending me a follow-up email. If it's been 4 or 5 days and I haven't gotten back to you, send that follow-up email. It's like, hey, just following up on my previous message, and I will get back to you. Folks get sick, folks have vacation, things happen. So we promise we will get back to you. We do pride ourselves on trying to be as responsive as possible to folks. So please feel free to reach out. No question is too big or too small. Please, I'm more than happy to read your drafts. I typically, yeah, people usually get to me the last 2 weeks, so it gets overwhelming. So if you can get to me before the last 2 weeks, that'd be amazing. But life is life. Things happen. If it just so happens to be the last 2 weeks and you want feedback, don't worry about it. We will get back to you and we'll make sure to read your draft and give you some feedback. So if I don't do it, let's say I'm super overwhelmed, which could possibly happen. There are other people on the team that are reviewers too that would be more than happy to help you. So please reach out to me. I will most likely be the one helping you out with the draft, also scheduling one-on-one feedback sessions if that's what folks need. So please, take advantage of this resource. And we're more than happy to help you along the way of this entire process, as it's long and arduous in some ways, but we're 100% here to support. And again, that is all I have for you. And please don't be a stranger. Please reach out. We are around.
Thank you so much, Carlos, for this awesome presentation. Folks, we still have time. So if you want to get your how sentences into the chat so Carlos can give you some feedback, please do. Otherwise, if you have any questions that are specific to your project, Carlos can answer some questions for you. Now is a great time while you have him face to face.
Absolutely.
So please feel free to like unmute. This is like the time to let all the questions out.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your comment. I really appreciate you. Jennifer writes, our butterfly community of volunteers will coordinate to buy supplies and come together to build the new propagation greenhouse to be utilized during in preparing for the 2026-2027 migration season. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Eloise writes, Community Serenity Garden leadership will collaborate with professional organizations, to help establish how to work with a specific group. So really for you, Eloise, for this particular, sentence, you could tack it on to the project description question, right? In at least 150 words, provide a detailed project description. You can add this to that other sentence you created. And what we would want here is try to tell us about those professional organizations. We want to know who it is that you're working with, right? And how they're going to be contributing to this important work that you're doing. So please take that space in the application to talk about them a little more and how they're going to be crucial to the work that you folks are collaborating with. And Hannah writes, we will host a community event for children to learn about pollinator habitats, native species, and build homes using twigs and pine wood and plant native species to attract pollinators. Yeah, that's a pretty good how-to.
Hi. I came to the meeting a little late. I had a problem getting onto Zoom from my phone. So I didn't understand the first part of the meeting. when you were speaking about listing each project separately. So what my question is if you wanted to do a series of workshops, would you put that all under the project, or would you have to put, so like a series of workshops, could you just put that under one project and list the workshops, or would you have to
Yes,
list each
that's what
workshop?
you would do.
Oh,
That's exactly what you
okay.
would do. You would, so that's a great question, a very good clarifying question. So what you would want to do there is that is one project, so that is one application. So what I would want you to do is, because some people, what they do is when they're applying, they tell us about, like, they give us the title of the workshop, but they don't actually tell us what it is that they're doing in the workshop, if that makes sense. So what you would want
Right.
to do in the project description section is to detail that series. So pretend I'm a participant and you're walking me through what these workshops are going to be doing, what they're going to be teaching, who's going to be teaching it, and why these experts are, good at what they do in disseminating this information to the public, to the community, right? So yeah, please, it would be your task, when talking about those workshops, is to detail those workshops and what's going to be happening throughout it. Because some people might be like, "Hey, I'm doing like a mental wellness workshop," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's great, but a mental wellness workshop can look like so many different things. So many people can approach it so many different ways. So please detail those things for us, and you should be perfectly fine. I think a series of workshops in gardens are really cool. We have plenty of people in our network that um, have offered workshops and things of the sort, of all different kinds of things, whether it's focusing on nutrition, or focusing on mental health, or focusing on gun violence, or focusing on trying to make gardens more accessible to children with disabilities, all kinds of things. And they were pretty good. They ended up getting funded because they were very clear in communicating what they were going to be doing during that programming, within the context of the workshops. So, if you do that, you should be perfectly fine. And great question. I think that one is necessary, I think. Any other hows or any other questions?
Thank you for that answer. I had a trouble when trying to unmute. Okay, thank
No,
you.
no worries. I appreciate you. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay.
Did I see something in the chat? All right, there we go. Camille writes, by incorporating the following factors, the community will see the process of how nature recycles energy, such as decomposition of waste into compost, roles that certain insects have in decomposition, and an explanation of molecules that will be beneficial or ineffective to different plant growth. By having a garden to attract pollinators, we can demonstrate the benefits of pollinators' works and benefits of pollinators' byproduct to the human body and the environment. Think that makes sense. I think, Camille, though, one thing I would love to hear about, regarding this, and you can even, so what you're writing almost feels like are the why too, and that's like what's so arbitrary about this stuff, because you can use different parts of it for different parts of the question, right? So for you, like, as I'm reading this, when it comes to at least not just the how but also the why, um talk about pollinators in the context of your community and your neighborhood. I want to get a glimpse into that too, just a little bit. You don't have to write extensive, things about that, but just a glimpse of how this is happening, because there are plenty of communities across the city, that don't have access to community gardens or green space, and that might be your neighborhood, right? So it makes your project a kind of intervention to the fact that, um, you know there aren't enough pollinators or enough spaces for pollinators to flourish in any given community. So I think giving us a glimpse of that would be great. But Camille, I think this is like awesome. So please.
I'm
Um,
I'm trying to like so this was also a why, but I'm a very slow typer, so I apologize
no,
about
no,
that.
you don't need to apologize. You good.
Um, but one of the things like you said to be a little bit more friendlier, and I do have a hard time with that because, you know, the science in me starts to get into these. But I think that also sometimes the community gardens, one, people don't know about it, and then two, uh, some of these programs that used to be offered into the schools about just the recycling of science and all that stuff. I could probably put that into the essays that those are being eliminated from some of these programs. They're
that,
not funded.
that, that,
Yeah,
that's what I want to hear.
got
So
you.
you don't, it has nothing to do about being nice at all. I think that is what I want to hear. Because I didn't know that, right? And it speaks to why your project is so crucial. So yeah, I think this is great, Camille. Please talk about that, especially in your why section of your application. That would make a tremendous impact in that section because again, I keep using the word intervention. I feel like that's my word of the week. Yeah, and that's what you're doing. You're intervening on account of the fact that these things are being eliminated, and I think that's important. So please talk about it. Atapon writes, is there a minimum amount to apply for the grant? I don't know what that means in particular. So please get off mute and explain what you mean minimum amount to apply for their grants.
Sure.
Feel
Hi.
free to get off
I
mute. There
yes.
we
Hi.
go.
I came in late, so I don't know if you talked about it. So the grant you can apply up to 5,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So if we're writing a grant, is there like if let's say we want to do a project, it's it's 1,000.
Hmm.
That's okay, right? We don't
Yeah,
have
that's
to worry
perfect.
about the
That's
amount.
perfectly fine. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So if you there is a part of the application where you can tell us exactly like what the range is. I think it says like 1,000 to 3,000 and then 3,000 to
Okay.
5,000. So yeah, you don't need to request the full amount.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. That's a very fair question. Thank you, Camille. I appreciate you. Any other questions? Listen, I haven't heard any bad ones yet. So I think all of these were perfectly relevant and necessary.
How much is the grant for?
Up to $5,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Carlos, I'm not sure if I heard you mention this or not.
Hmm.
This is my second time hearing this presentation too, so I should know. But do folks need to have a fiscal sponsor to apply for this grant?
No, you do not need a fiscal sponsor, y'all. It can just be, like I said, you and one other person. That is the main eligibility requirement for this, is just make sure that you're applying with another person in the community that is a part of the work that you're doing, and you should be perfectly fine. I know things get very complicated with fiscal sponsors because they obviously want to charge certain fees and things of the sort. We really just need somebody that's applying that is willing to receive the money either via direct deposit or a check. So yeah, that's really all we need. Just need two people. And if you want to check, give us a good address of where to send the check. And if you are going the direct deposit route, just make sure you're giving us the correct email so that we send all of that information over your way. So that's really all we need. So there is no need to get fiscal sponsors involved if you don't need to. Eloise, what's up?
I had a question. Well, my first question was, if you apply for a particular amount in the grant and you're underspend, is there like an amendment you can do if you have other needs or what, or just
Use
return
it
it?
at that point. Just use it for whatever it is that you need. We're not gonna ask you to give the money back.
Okay,
We're gonna trust you there. I think we'll be all
okay,
right. As long as you're spending the funds according to what you told us you were going to do,
yeah.
then you're fine. I wouldn't be too worried about that. We do, however, want folks to spend the full amount. That is 100% something that we hope folks do is spend all of the money within the 11
11
months
months.
with
Okay,
within October 2026 to September 2027. So yes, we would love for folks to spend all of the funds by then. And really, the key that we want is that final report I mentioned. So that's something that we're going to send out to folks in September 2027. And that final report is very simple. Like it takes 45 minutes to complete, and we literally organize info sessions to get people informed on what it is that we want to see. So you won't be left alone to just figure out some form. Like we're gonna walk you through it.
okay. And my second question was, if the organization does not have a bank account, what is the best? What is the do you require for the organization to have an established bank account in that garden
At
name?
at that point, you're gonna have to find someone you trust with a bank account.
Oh,
Just
okay.
so you're gonna have to you're gonna have to find someone who can have the money. Obviously, someone that you trust, someone that everyone knows is getting the money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I wouldn't be too
Okay.
worried about that. Just make sure again that you can find a place to get to have the
Yeah.
money safely. I think is the key here.
Okay. Again, because we're looking for organization that will banks that will give a bank account to our organization or to our garden.
No, it can this can be literally an individual's bank account. It doesn't need to be like an organizational or a garden wide one. You don't have to worry about that. As long as somebody you trust, it could be
Mm.
you, it could be your secondary contact, whoever it might be that you put in the application. It can be their individual bank account. So you don't have to worry about, the garden having one or the organization having one. You should be okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Jennifer writes, I understand if you can't answer this, but is there a personal tax liability on these grants if they're not going to? No. So these are grants. You do not have to pay any taxes on this. If someone tells you that you do, they're lying. So you're perfectly fine. You don't have to worry about any taxes when it comes to these grants. So you should be perfectly okay. Any other questions?
Yes. Another question on the workshops. If I was to do 4 to 5 workshops, do they all need to take place in a garden?
No, not at all.
Yes. Okay.
Really is just tell us what you're doing. Again, tell us what you're doing, why it's happening in your community, and how you're going to do it. Remember that our organization funds all kinds of projects. We don't just fund garden projects. We fund
Okay.
things across many different issue areas. So no, this doesn't necessarily have to happen in a garden. You just have to make sure that it's a community initiative, that it has community engagement, and that you're out there trying to serve. That's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great question.
Awesome. Um, well, folks, if there are no other questions, I mean, we still have a few minutes, so if anything comes up, feel free to stop me. But if there are no other questions, thank you all for being here tonight and spending your Wednesday evening with us to walk through the grant process. Um, just got to put a little shameless plug out there for NYRP. We do have quite a few events coming up this June that you can find out about on our website. We're having one this Saturday that is going to be talking about how to bring family friendly literacy programming to your garden. So you can check that out on our site. Anjana, if you're able to put links to what I'm saying, that'd be helpful. And then we're also going to be having an in-person day called My Family Plate at La Finca del Sur in the Bronx, where we'll be talking all about the connection between the food that we grow and our plates, and the communities that surround us. And we're going to also be having music in the garden at Los Amigos Community Garden on June 13th. So that's another in-person event we're doing in connection with Juilliard. So please head to our website and check out all the events that we have coming up and stay up to date, as we are always releasing new events month over month. And our gardens are also doing wonderful things as well. And you can find all of that at our calendar. So thanks, Anjana, for putting that link there. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Amazing. Y'all, listen, any other questions? They're welcome. But if you can't think of anything right now, putting my email again in the chat if you think of anything later that might pop up, because things might pop up later. So please, don't be a stranger. I'm around, happy to look at drafts whenever you have them ready. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for y'all, unless folks have more questions.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining. I appreciate your time, Carlos, and sharing all the
Course.
information that you have with the garden community. We appreciate it. I'm excited for everybody's projects. Hopefully, you all are awardees of the Citizens Grant this cycle, and you bring these wonderful projects to your community. Once again, my name is Nija. I'm a community garden engagement coordinator for NYRP, and I appreciate you all joining us tonight. So please have a wonderful evening. If you're into the Knicks, go Knicks, and we'll be seeing you all soon, hopefully. Have a good night.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful evening.